I'm going to show you how to sew the coffee house bag. I've made a ton of these. This is the one I use all the time, and I just made this one this week. Coffee house has an interchangeable flap, so you can take off this flap and make many other different kinds, and it's a really fun way to make the bag completely unique in yours and coincide with any outfit you've got. I can take this one off too. You can opt not to do that and just do a simple flap, and I show you how to do both. The bag has zipper pockets, front, outside, front, back, and inside, as well as vinyl see-through pockets. So let's go sew. We are going to make the coffee house bag with this gorgeous fabric line by Annabelle Wrigley called Penelope. I've chosen a couple prints here to make the bag. I've got my interfacing, the SF-101 woven interfacing, and some fusible fleece because I am out of foam at the moment. I have also got vinyl for one of the flaps because this bag pattern has interchangeable flaps. You may have seen this. This is the printed version, and it has color photographs and digital diagrams throughout the pattern every step of the way. I've got my leather strap. These are sewable leather straps, a magnetic clasp, some bias tape for the vinyl edge, and my template from by Piera, and some zippers. And of course, I couldn't do anything without the cutting tools that I use from Havel's Sewing. So let's get started cutting out this flap. I've got the main body pieces cut out, but I wanted to show you how I do my templates. I line it up here on the fold, just like the template is telling me, and I take my friction pen and trace it. Now, a lot of times I'll just come in here with my rotary cutter, but what I find is if I'm not spot on and concentrating, sometimes I'll nick my template. So I just, as a rule, don't usually do that anymore. So I'm just going to cut right on that line. You can use scissors or a rotary cutter, whatever you're most comfortable with. And on this portion, I'll use this as if it were an acrylic ruler. And there's one flap cut out perfectly. And with the plaid, I have it lined up just right. I really love using templates. They're time savers. Bumpy side up, and fabric lays down on top of that bumpy side here. I'm going to go ahead and fuse my interfacings to all the bag pieces except for pockets. These I've cut 2 pockets. I'm not going to do 3. I'm just going to do 2 zipper pockets. I've got some other miscellaneous cuts in the pattern. I've got my bag body fusible fleece ready to go, and I've got the SF-101. So I'm going to just take a break here from the camera and fuse all my interfacings, and I'll meet you back here in a second. So now this will be one of the interchangeable flaps, and I will put bias tape around the edges. Okay, you're going to take one of your exterior body pieces and align it so this is the 12.5 inch edge, and the shorter, the 11 inch, is going up and down. That's how we cut it, and that is how we need to be oriented. I fold this in half and make a crease, and then what I did is took my ruler and I drew a line down the center. I measure 575 up from the bottom and drew a line here. Now I've got this cross hatch where we will put in the magnetic closure. I
I take one side, it doesn't really matter which side, but it has these two prongs, and I center it so that that cross hatch where those lines intersect is right in the middle of those two prongs. And I press down, it makes an indentation here. Now if you want, you can draw so that you for sure know where you're going. You don't have to. And then I take either a scalpel or a craft knife and cut the fabric. Not very big, it's a pretty small cut, but I'm going through all the layers. And I just kind of gently do it back and forth until I can feel that cutting mat. Then push the prongs through. Sometimes during shipping these prongs kind of splay out. You might have to gently bend them in. Don't get too crazy though, because they can break. And then sometimes the interfacing, if it's good stuff, it didn't really slice. So you may have to come in with your scissors and gently cut a little section there. So there is that. Then put on the back and fold the prongs down. Now, I have in the past added an extra layer before folding my prongs down, but now what I find is I just do a little layer on top and fuse it in place. And that just ensures that those prongs stay down, okay? So that one is on. Now, let's see here. This side is the top. I like to mark a T here to remind myself that this is the top, this is the bottom of the bag. Make sure you follow the pattern and put the magnet on the lining side. The lining side, not the exterior side. I had to do a little patchwork there, literally a patch. Okay, so now you can see that the exterior, this is a front exterior main body, and it has the little magnet, and this will be the flap, and they will go together. See how that has to work? Okay, so let's do a zipper pocket. Already measured and made a rectangle for my zipper. What I want to show you here is how I do it. So following the directions, turn your zipper pocket. This is the wrong side. Here's the right side. This is the wrong side of the zipper pocket. I take the top edge and using my ruler, draw a line 1 inch down. Measure down 3/8 of an inch from that first line we drew. Measure 1 inch in from the side, draw a line, measure 1 inch in from this side. Now we've got a rectangle. This is where the zipper will sit for the pocket. So make sure right now, before you do anything else, that it is straight and symmetrical and everything looks good. Mine almost looks a little crooked here. Let me measure this again. My first line was a little bit crooked. See what you can catch just by taking some time and checking your work. Okay, now I do not usually interface my zipper pockets. I find that they work just fine, not interfaced, and I want to save a little bit of money. If you're selling your bags, you may choose to interface the pocket pieces, but just know that in my patterns, usually I don't interface the pockets. Unless we're doing like a slip-in pocket, then I might. Okay, so now we're going to take the exterior piece with the magnet, and we measure down from the top. Now remember, I drew that little T there, so I know this is the top edge. We're going to measure down 1.5 inches from that raw edge. I better use an erasable pen here. And draw a line. And then place this. You might want to fold this in half to make a center crease. I find that it does help. You should already have that center crease line from placing the magnet on your exterior piece. Match those center creases and place the top of the pocket on that line. Pin that in place, and then we'll sew all the way around right on top of that rectangle box we drew. Cut down the middle of that rectangle and then make V-notches on each end. I usually cut off those little V-notches. Push it through the opening and press it really well. Alright, at this point we will add the zipper. I like to use this fusible double-sided tape now. In the pattern I use Elmer's glue, and that works great as well. See, some of this isn't even sticky. So I really press that down and then peel off the paper piece. And now I can just place it right where I want it to go in that zipper window. And that should hold it in place pretty well, and we'll sew all the way around to secure the zipper. To finish the pocket up, we've got the zipper in, everything is tidy. You'll just fold the pocket up, matching those top edges, move the body out of the way, and sew across the top. Once that's sewn, come to each side, moving the body out of the way, and sew down each side to secure the pocket. So here's the side of the pocket that's still open. Moving the body out of the way. And then repeat for the other side that's still open. And now the pocket is finished. We will repeat the zipper pocket process that we did for the front body to the back body. Just make sure that you have it oriented this direction so that it's more wide than tall. And then if you're going to put a zipper pocket on the inside, just do the exact same thing. It'll still be 1.5 inches from the top raw edge, centered, align it, sew the rectangle, cut, push it through, and attach your zipper. Remember, when you're sewing the rectangle for the zipper hole, the fabrics are right sides together, because then you're going to cut through this and push it through, and you want your pocket to have the right fabric showing inside, for example, this. And I've done it backwards before, so don't feel bad if you do it backwards. It's just a pocket. It'll still work as a pocket. No need to sweat it. I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then I will meet you back here and we will do the vinyl pockets. For the vinyl pocket, I decided to use scrap vinyl in case you're new to this. I've already attached binding to the top edge. Per the instructions in the pattern, you're just going to apply a double fold binding to the top and bottom edge. I do it the cheater method way, which is like this. I just tuck it in there like Pac-Man and then sew down the edge. So you'll do this on the other side as well. And what this does is allows us to have a pretty pocket with fabric sides so that when we sew it onto the lining, you're not extending the vinyl all the way across. You certainly can. I always say make a pattern work for you and do what you want with it. Use it as a baseline and experiment. But for my testers, I found this way to be the easiest solution. I'm just going to fold down that top and bottom edge to make it the same size as the vinyl pocket. Top stitch those ends down. Match the raw edges. It may take some time to come in here and trim all these threads once you've got them, the pocket pieces sewn together. That's okay, it's part of the process. Now don't iron directly on your vinyl, you can melt it. I just get really close. Okay, place the pocket 3 inches from the top edge and you want it centered. Once you've got the pocket in place, sew down each side and bottom edge and then come back in and make dividers. I find that then these 2 side pockets are just perfect for holding pens and markers or pencils. Now sewing from the bottom edge towards the top, I'm going to do those dividers. Okay, so there's one of my linings with the vinyl pocket and then the pencil and pen pockets. So nothing ever goes missing. I'm going to set that one aside and let's put the binding on the optional flap. Now again, this bag has interchangeable flaps, so you can totally skip this if you're just going to have one flap. I'm going to show you how I do it. Okay, so for the first top edge here, just going to slip that in so that it's all the way against the fold. I use clips to hold it in place, and then I sew down all at once all the way across the edge. That is the cheater method, but it works, so that's what I do. I need a Teflon foot because it does just fine. We're mostly on the binding here. Okay, trim the excess off. Now for the sides, I'm going to fold the edge in like 1/4 of an inch and press that down so it stays. And then this will get tucked in here. And then I just repeat. Now sometimes, because of the curve, I have to coax it a little bit with an iron, but remember, don't touch your iron to that vinyl if you're using vinyl. If you sort of shape it with your iron before applying, it's super, super easy to just tuck everything in. I always cut it long first to make sure I've got enough. I'm out of clips. No, I'm not. Is your sewing space a mess? Because mine is right now. Just a hot mess. Okay. So there it is. The ends are tucked in. I'm just going to sew all the way around to attach it. I'm not pulling, I'm not tugging, just letting the feed dogs do their thing. Okay, so now I'm going to go get a magnetic snap, and I'm going to put the magnetic snap 1 inch up, just like the fabric flap. So there's 2 flaps ready to go. Let's continue. Okay, let's attach the gusset. This is one of the exterior body pieces, and here's my gusset, 3 inches by 35. I'm going to place this right sides together and use clips or pins to hold it in place all the way down. When you come down here to the corners, you What I do is I hold it in place with my finger and kind of curve it along the end here. If there's a little pucker or wrinkle here in the corner, it's okay because when this bag is put together, that will be hidden anyways. Let's see, can you see that? Let's get a little closer. There we go. And I'm going to continue all around. I'm a fan of having gusset side and bottom all in one piece. I do a lot of my patterns this way because the less pieces to cut out, the better in my mind. Just saying. There should be a little overhang at the top. Mine isn't as much because I'm working with fat quarters and I had to piece my gusset, so I have a seam here and that took out some of the overhang. But you should have maybe a 1/2 inch even, or a 1/4 inch of overhang here. I did that on purpose so that you don't run out of gusset. I'm just going to trim it to size now and we're good to go. So now sew all the way around, attaching this gusset to this exterior piece. Oof. I was looking down there for a second. So there's our attached gusset piece. That's going to be fun, contrasting. Now we will add the other exterior side to the remaining free side of the gusset. So just like before, make sure that you have enough sewed all the way around, just like before. Starting to look like a bag. Now remember, I have not attached my flap because I'm doing the interchangeable flap. In the pattern, step 16 is attaching the flap if you're not going to make the interchangeable one. So just so you know, that's why my flap is not on here. Okay? I'm going to turn this right side out. I want to check everything, check all my seams. If you're making this out of vinyl, you're going to want to make 2 passes on your seams, and that relieves some of the tension and prevents stitch pop, I call it, which is where you see your stitching in vinyl. Just a little tidbit there. Okay, so this is the front. Once I get the bag together, I'm going to get a ham and press it out, press all those corners out. But for now, yay! So we will repeat all that for the lining. Okay, so we'll just repeat the process to add the gusset to the lining pieces. And yes, I've added a vinyl pocket in this. I just took it all the way across. It's 5 inches with some binding on the top edge only. And it's not in the pattern, but it's simple enough to do. I always say make a pattern work for you. So let's sew this on. Okay, so now we've got the lining, we've got the bag body, we've got the strap or the flaps. Now would be the time to add the D-rings, which is an add-on feature. You don't have to do that, but you would just take your fabric and fold it in, and then fold it over again and sew down each side to make your D-ring. I'm not going to go over that. It's outlined in the pattern. You can do that if you like. I'm just going to sew in my leather straps. It's easy. These are sewable. They're 100% leather. It's fast, and I like the finished look. So what I'm going to do on the exterior is put this right sides together and put a clip in place. Cut my strap. Right sides together. Remember, the fabric and the leather are right sides together, because when you flip it out later, you want the leather side of the strap to show. Does that make sense? So I'm making sure it's not twisted. I'm bringing it around the bag, centering it on that side gusset. And now I'm just simply going to sew that in place. I am using my Teflon foot, but only because I just didn't swap it out with my regular foot. I don't find I have to change feet for these straps. Some leathers you do. Now that the strap is attached, we're going to place this inside the lining, so it's right sides together. Strap and all. Tuck that strap down in there. You're going to match all the seams. So the gusset seams, we will nest those. Nesting means one seam goes one direction and the other seam goes the other direction. It sort of locks them in place. And then come all the way around the bag. I like to match the gusset seams first. I nest those seams whichever way they feel like they want to go. I don't get too crazy. And now I'm going to go back and either clip or pin all the top raw edges together. Everything should fit now. If you're having wrinkles or lumps here, it's time to check your seam allowance. And if you need to go back in and release some seams and get it to fit right, either with a bigger or smaller seam allowance, do it now, because you really don't want to have a bunch of lumps at the top. It's okay if it happens, it happens. Just keep carrying on, keep trying. It'll come one day. My first bags had lots of lumps and bumps, so don't worry too much. All right, we're going to sew all the way around the top edge. I like to start on the side because it's less noticeable if I do end up with a lump. Now I'm not pulling, I'm not stretching the fabric, I'm just letting the feed dogs do their thing. If you wanted to use a walking foot for this step, you can. If I have lots of layers, that's what I would do. This bag with the fusible fleece is not too much for my machine, so I'm not going to change my foot. There goes the strap right here. See? Sewable leather, I mean, so nice. Oh, I ran out of bobbin. Can you believe that? I ran out of bobbin a long time ago. When you stop, try to stop with your needle down in the fabric. It's so easy to pull it inadvertently. Some machines, well, a lot of machines will do that automatically. Mine doesn't. Okay, I prefer to do it this way. I just unpick a little bit of the bottom seam here to turn my bag out, because we've trained the fabric to turn in, so it's going to be really easy to just tuck that in and close it up at the end. It's better than doing it around the top, because if you miss iron anything or don't get it perfect, you'll notice it, and that's annoying. Okay, I'm going to tuck this under and press it. I'm just taking those two little layers there. Now, as another option, you could do the side seam. I didn't want to do that with having that vinyl pocket all the way across. Still, I'm just going to close this. You can hand stitch this if you want to. I'm not going to. Okay, tuck your lining down into your bag. We're almost there. We just have to do our flaps. Take your time on this step. Sometimes I have to work on these seams and really pull them out. Oh, yikes. And with an iron, I press all these seams, but sometimes, like you can see this here, it wants to sit down in there, so I gently coax it up with the end of a pin, gently. If you want to, you can top stitch around the whole top of the bag, just right along the edge there. It's up to you. I usually don't. I kind of like not seeing some stitches there. It just depends the mood, I guess. We've got our fabric flap and the vinyl flap, which is already ready to go for the cam snaps. I do still have to put in my magnetic snap, and I will do that. But for the fabric flaps, here's my outside, here's my inside. What I want to do is cut a piece of binding that's a little bit longer than the top raw edge of this flap. You can see it's still open. I fold in, I completely unfold so I can see all these creases, and I fold in the edge about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to clip that in place, and then all the way down the edge I'm going to sew in that first ditch. They make it really easy there so you know where to sew. I'm going to trim this a bit. You don't want too much folded in or it gets bulky. So then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm just pressing it in. I just gave it a finger press and put a clip there to hold that in place. So now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and sew in this ditch. That top edge of the binding is even with the top edge of the flap. This is cut on the bias, so if you find you need to refold at the very end, that's okay, just refold. So now we've got it sewn down on that side. I'm just going to push it up and flip it over to the outside of the flap and fold it back down. I like to use an iron and make sure this is good to go here. It can help to trim all these threads. That edge, you want to make sure that edge is still tucked in. So you fold it down to that crease and then you fold it over again. It's just like quilt binding. I'm going to take it all the way down. Usually I would use the same fabric for my binding, but I'm doing this the quick way today. It doesn't matter what you do, you make it yours. There's no wrong. It matches. And this is the slightly longer side. Just like quilt binding, there's one side that's just a smidge shorter. And so for the outside of the flap, you want to make sure the longer edge of the binding is on the front, because that will allow you to cover up that first row of stitching that we already did when we attached it to this side. Now, if you wanted to, you could hand stitch this just like binding. I'm going to do it the machine way. I really should have my stylus and hold it there while I'm sewing. My stiletto or whatever. What is that called? Oh my gosh. Pointy, stabby thing. Now we have to measure where we're going to put the snaps. So I've made marks here according to the pattern. 1 inch in, 4.25 inches in, which is this, 775, which is here, and then 1 inch in from this edge, which is here. I've got my snap press here with all my snaps and pieces plus another die for the opposite side. So first what I like to do is take the sharp pointy piece. Now I want the caps to be on the outside. So the cap will be on the outside. I push it through the binding. I make sure everything is going to fit. And I want that pointy piece to pop through at that 1 inch mark. Then I'm going to take whatever die you have. It doesn't matter if it's the push out, it doesn't matter if it's the socket or the stud. Mine is on the socket right now, so that's what I'm putting on. I'm holding that in place, putting it on my press machine. And there's one. If you're not comfortable with your snap press, do this a couple of times. Normally with just a fabric binding at the top edge, I do not have to poke a hole. I just want you to know that. Now that we have those snaps on the flap, what I like to do is match the magnetic closure. I put it on there. I flip it over gently. Now I'm facing the back of the bag and I bring down the flap. This ensures that I'm going to put the snaps in the right place. So let me see. Let me just move this out of the way. So it is buckled. See, it's buckled to the bag on the front. So you know that's the front. Everything is going to be straight and lined up. I'm going to bring it down, and with an erasable pen, mark your placements. This has to be right. They have to go on in the exact right spot, or you can have a crooked flap. Okay, I'm going to show you this one. Now, we are on the inside, we put the cap, we're poking through. You want to make sure that you're putting the opposite end on this side so these connect. So I put the socket up here, so now, I put the socket up here, so now I have to apply the stud, which means I need to change my die on my snap press. Let's pop that out. Okay, so now I'm going to load the stud, bringing it over to my snap press. I'm making sure all the fabric is out of the way. Nothing's going to be wrinkled or caught as I apply the snap. No, nothing's in the way. No strap in the way. Nada. And there's one. So now I'm going to repeat that process to attach the other 4 snaps. Okay, all of our snaps are applied. I'm just going to pop this on. And there's our fabric flap. How fun, right? It looks good. It looks like it's on purpose and meant to be. I love it. I'm going to undo this. I have not yet put on my magnetic snap on, but I will. I'm going to pop on this one, vinyl flap. And there's that one. And once I get my magnetic closure on there, that'll be so cute.